Do you worry about making more than enough money so you can not only meet your needs, but also your heart's desires, like some of the things you truly desire to do that are going to, feed your joy in your heart? Or are you having lack consciousness where you just feel like there's not enough? Not enough time, not enough money, that you don't have enough energy, maybe you don't have enough space, but just not enough. All of this is lack consciousness, the complete opposite of prosperity consciousness. Hi, I'm Deepa Lou, and I'm the Creative Mystic, and I was guided by my spirit guides to share with you this topic about prosperity consciousness and financial abundance. How important it is if you wish to manifest financial abundance in your life. And what most people do is they want to skip to how do I get to financial abundance without ever looking at their consciousness. And so I was guided to share with you in this first part of this series, because this is going to be a series. So if you would like to get the whole series about this, please subscribe and turn on your notifications. Okay? But today I was guided to share with you three things. The importance of prosperity consciousness in manifesting financial abundance. It's really the first thing you have to do, okay, is look at your consciousness and how do you get it into prosperity consciousness. The second thing is how to be aware of when you've dropped from that prosperity consciousness and you're in lack consciousness. Because the biggest challenge that I see with my clients that I've worked with in coaching is that most people don't even realize they're in lack consciousness. Is that possibly you? Are you constantly worried about not enough, like I talked about? Okay. And three, how to start to rewire your mind for prosperity consciousness. So, because that's the first step to financial abundance. All right. So let's get going. So let's talk about why it's so important to have prosperity consciousness before you make causes for financial abundance. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. When you think of financial abundance, what do you think of that you probably have to do something to get financial abundance, right? You probably think if you have a job, you think you have to go to work. If you have your own business, you think you have to go out and market or do sales to bring that financial abundance to you. Now, I'm not going to say that's not true, because in our world, we have to make a cause. That's the law of cause and effect that's operating all the time in our world on the physical plane. We have to make a cause. But the first cause you have to make on the spiritual plane and on the plane of consciousness is to make a cause in your thoughts. And that cause is prosperity consciousness. Because if you're not in prosperity consciousness, you are most likely in lack consciousness. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough energy, not enough of whatever. So how do you recognize if you're in lack consciousness? Because like I said, it's very important to be in prosperity consciousness, because if you're not, what's going to happen is all the causes that you're making on the physical plane are going to be out of alignment with what you're thinking on the consciousness plane. And that means there's conflict going on within your body, mind, and soul. And if you want it to happen faster, we need to get all parts of you in alignment. And when I say in alignment, I mean on the same page. You don't want your consciousness, your mind worried about, is there enough? There's not enough. What if they pick someone else? What if I don't do it right? All those kinds of things are coming from lack consciousness. Maybe you think you're not enough, or that someone doesn't like you, or anything to do with any of that is lack consciousness. Now, so if you're going to make causes on the physical plane, you want to have your consciousness to match what you're doing on the physical action, the physical plane, the behaviors that you're doing. So you want your habitual ways of thinking to match what you're doing. Okay? So there is a doing part of this if you want to have financial abundance, because financial abundance is something on the physical plane. Okay? But you've got to first start with prosperity consciousness, or you will see yourself struggle more. Now, I'm not saying you won't manifest any financial abundance if you don't have your prosperity consciousness, but wouldn't you like it to be easier? Wouldn't you like there to be a flow? I know I always do. I love it when things come to me more easily and there's a flow and it's not hard. Well, that's what happens when you bring your prosperity consciousness and the financial abundance causes that you're making and alignment, okay? So that's why it's so important to get into prosperity consciousness. Now, let's cover number 2. Number 2 is how to be aware when you've dropped to lack consciousness. Now, I don't know you. I hope to get to know you though, so I'd love to have you share or give any comments or questions that you might have from this, okay? But most people I meet are in lack consciousness most of the time. Now, how do you know if you're in lack consciousness? Do you feel frustrated a lot? Do you worry a lot about anything, okay? Do you doubt yourself or have doubt on whether you made the right choice? Or do you doubt whether this is intuition or your ego? All of that, frustration, worry, doubt, not enough, is lack consciousness. If you talk about what you don't want, lack consciousness. Most people, I was raised that way. It's still something that I have to work on. I'm much better than I ever was, but that I can have a habit because I grew up in that environment where I talk about what I don't want rather than what I want. And when I'm in prosperity consciousness, I talk about what I want. So I want you to pay attention to yourself. Are you talking about what you don't want? Are you feeling frustrated? Are you worried? Are you having doubt? All of those are signs of lack consciousness. Don't feel bad if you have it. Like I said, almost everybody I meet has been programmed that way. Okay? Unless you came from a very wealthy, aware parents, you've probably been programmed for lack. Because what is one of the biggest things a lot of parents say to to their kids? How much does it cost? That's too much money. We can't afford it. That's lack. All that's lack consciousness. So we have to help you first become aware of when you're in it. Because when you can say, I'm in lack consciousness. And then here's the second thing you got to choose to move yourself out of it. You have to be willing to go, that's not the truth, that lack. And go, I'm going to shift to prosperity consciousness. Now, if you listen to my last episode, I talked about the whole next thing. If you want to watch that, feel free to. That was some intuitive guidance by Mother of Prosperity. But I'm breaking it down in some different ways here because I was just talking about spiritual prosperity in the previous one. But feel free to check that out. I'll put a little link up there for you if you want to watch it. But it's important for you to make that conscious choice. So you have to become aware and then choose to I'm going to shift to prosperity consciousness. Okay, so write those 2 down. 1, become aware, and choose to shift to prosperity consciousness. Okay, I'm going to recap again real quick. So how do you know if you're in lack consciousness? Remember, I gave you a list. What's that list? Say it with me if you can. If you're frustrated, if you worry, if you doubt, okay, if you're in any not enough, all of those are lack consciousness, okay? So become aware of those when you get the, also remember I said also if you talk about what you don't want. There's actually 5, okay? So if you're talking about what you don't want all the time, catch yourself and change it to what you want. Okay, that would be bringing you into prosperity consciousness. If you say, I don't want blah, 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 say, I want. Like what most people do is they'll say, I don't want to have to carry that over to there. Well, what do you want? And you'll see some people struggle to say what they want. But it's the opposite of what you don't want. It can be helpful to think that way, okay? So practice expressing it in what you want. If you catch yourself worrying or doubting, the doubt of whether you're in your intuition and your ego, all that again, or doubt whether you're good enough, all of that lack consciousness, okay? Catch yourself, I'm in lack consciousness. Breathe, look up at your third eye, because you have that subconscious, conscious, and superconscious mind always operating. Talked about that in a different video. But we want to get you to your superconscious mind. So if you look up at your third eye, the point between your eyebrows, what I'm pointing to right now, okay, that will help take you out of the lack consciousness. Okay, so you want to just make that acknowledgement. Okay, so let's get to number 3. But how do you start to rewire your mind for prosperity consciousness. Now, there is more than I can tell you in this little video about how to rewire, but I'm going to just get you started because it's a process. Rewiring your mind to prosperity is from, I don't want to limit you, but I have not seen anybody yet who can do it like that overnight. Think about whatever age you are. That's how long you've had this programming of lack consciousness. And so we have to help you start to recognize your lack consciousness of thinking and your lack consciousness of the behaviors, the actions that you're doing or not doing. Because most people, when they get into lack consciousness, are not doing things a lot of times. They avoid stuff. I don't know if you're like that, but there's an avoidance energy of, I don't want to deal with that, because they don't have it figured out how to do it if they don't have the money. And so we're going to help you just start with the rewiring process. Well, I talked about the first one, which is awareness. You have to be aware when you're in lack consciousness, okay? And then the second one was be willing to shift from that lack to prosperity. And you might be thinking, wouldn't everybody? But there's a lot of people who, they get very tied to their perspective on life, and that keeps them stuck, okay? So you have to be willing to go, let me be open and willing to, I'm going to shift my consciousness from this lack to this prosperity, abundance consciousness, okay? So you have to consciously choose to look up or to say that statement I said, everything is happening for the betterment of my life, and really start to reprogram yourself, okay? Now, the way we reprogram you is we have to reprogram your subconscious mind, because that's where all your memories are stored, in your subconscious mind. That's where all your emotional wounds are. That's where all of your habits are. All your belief systems are in your subconscious mind. And the way you rewire that is through repetition, experience, and healing. Okay? So what do you want to repeat? You want to repeat spiritual truth. I've talked about this before, but I'm going to keep repeating it because people don't understand. You have to understand what spiritual truth should you repeat, and that involves learning. And so you want to learn what the spiritual truths are. Now, I can't tell you every spiritual truth that is available, here right now in this little video, but you can start to learn. Now, one of the books I really recommend is Working with the Law. It's, if you're a very beginner and you know nothing about the spiritual truths, it's one that breaks them down into, like, here's the laws. They refer to the law as God. It's a great book for someone who doesn't know anything about the laws. And just, it will start to open your mind, okay? So I'll put a link for that in my description in the show notes so that you can get that. It's a great book. It's an old book, so don't be surprised. It's an old book, but it's a good one, okay? So it's Working with the Law, and I'll put that link down in my show notes. So start there. Now, if you're really serious and you really want to start to use your intellect, which in the way that it's meant to be used, because most people use their intellect to analyze and actually give evidence to why they have the beliefs they have or the consciousness they have, rather than what your intellect is supposed to be used for is to help you apply the spiritual laws, the spiritual truths, so you can actually manifest what you desire, to actually create a life that you love, one fulfilled with your purpose and your meaning of why you're on the planet. That's what your intellect is really supposed to be used for, is to help you in this rewiring process. Because being in a human body, just about every one of us has been programmed for non-truths. And the first one is that frustration. We've all been wired to believe that frustration will get us what we want. And the first time I heard this in a book where we were programmed for it, I thought, well, I know I was, because of the way my household was and that I grew up in. But the story they shared with me about why we've all been wired for frustration blew my mind. I just went... But he told this story I'm going to share with you, is about, from the time that you're an infant, a little baby, and you cry out because you're hungry. You're frustrated because you're hungry and you want some food. And then what happens? Your mom comes by and picks you up and holds you and cuddles you and starts to feed you. And you're like, oh, I got what I wanted, okay? And then puts you back down. And then what happens? You're frustrated again because you go, what? You poop in your diaper. And now you want a clean diaper. So you cry because you don't like the way the diaper feels. And what happens? Your mom or your dad comes in and picks you up and all comforts you and changes your diaper. And so every time you were frustrated, you cried out in frustration and a parent showed up to relieve that. And so you got wired that frustration gets you what you want. But once you get beyond infancy, frustration doesn't get you what you want because it's now this energy that is going to just create more frustration in your life. And when I heard that, I was just like mind blown. So I want you to understand that frustration will not get you what you want. It is lack consciousness. When people feel frustrated, it's because they don't have what they want. Okay? So we have to help you reprogram that programming that you've gotten into what spiritual truth is. And you want to start to delve into what that is, okay? Now, if you really want more help, and you're looking for a coach to help you, please check out my Next Step Connection call. I'd love to hear from you to see if we're a fit and you're ready to move forward to get that help. You really want to transform your life faster, because then you can get help from not only me but my spirit guides. Okay, so feel free to check that out too. That'll be in the show notes. But you want to right now get that book, start reading it, start delving into the spiritual truths that are out there, okay? And then you want to after you start to understand what spiritual truth you have, remember I said repetition helps to reprogram your mind? Well, one of the things you need to repeat are affirmations of spiritual truth. Not just any affirmation, but an affirmation of spiritual truth. So, one of mine is, everything is happening for the betterment of my life. That's a spiritual truth. And you have to start to change your consciousness. So I have that where often that's the first thing that comes to my mind. But if I'm really tired, or hungry, because you have to understand when physically, your physical body feels tired or hungry, you're going to go to your default mechanism, which is your subconscious mind. And so when you haven't gotten it fully deprogrammed, it still can pop up. And even when you think it's fully, because sometimes I think okay, this happened. Something might happen where I realize there's still some of this left, okay? And then you work on it some more. So for you today, all I want you to do is start reading some spiritual truth, because that's what you need to reprogram your mind with. And as you read that book, you're going to maybe come up with an affirmation. If you don't, please, I'd love to hear, or when you come up with that affirmation, put it in the comments. But also, it's one of the things I help people with when I work with people is what affirmation, what spiritual truth do you actually really start to need to affirm to help reprogram and rewire your mind for prosperity. So that's the beginning part of rewiring your mind for prosperity, okay? So if you like what you've heard, please give me a thumbs up, a like. It all helps me. And subscribe, turn on your notifications so that you can get the next part in this series, okay? Because I'd love to see you more. And remember, greatness is within you. It's time to shine your light. And if this has blessed you in any way and you think of someone else that would benefit from it, please share it, all right? Have a miraculous day. Blessings.